Welcome to this week's episode of The Inspired Evolution. It is with none other than Kate Eckman. Oh my God, she recently wrote the book called The Full Spirit Workout. Now, I know that sounds super woo-woo, but the tools that we gleaned and the insights that we gleaned from this book are super practical. They will meet you every day in every way. There is so many different things that you can install in your life to help you achieve even the things that are in your wildest imagination. She is a high-performance coach, and her big ace in the hole is spirit. We unpack the full spirit workout in this conversation. I know you're going to take away something really, really special. So stay tuned and enjoy this episode. Stay inspired. Keep evolving, y'all. Love you. There goes a sight from my soul. Welcome to the Inspired Evolution, and it is a treat, not just for your body, not just for your mind, not just for your heart, but also for your spirit. Today, we have with us Kate Eckman. Kate, how are you?
Well, I'm fantastic. After that, I feel like I've met someone who matches my wild, energetic, enthusiastic self. So thank you for being you, and welcome to the party, everyone. Yes.
It is such a treat to have you here. For those tuning into Kate, oh my God, her list of accomplishments, like we would take an hour to go through, there would be no podcast. But fundamentally, at the heart of it, she's a success coach. She empowers high achieving individuals to actually really, really realize their potential. So let's dive deep into that conversation. Kate, you recently wrote a book called the full spirit workout. Now, I want to understand, when you're coaching high achieving individuals, we talked about some of these people, they're extremely well off. They're extremely successful by the mainstream sense of what do we call it? I don't want to call it trinkets, but it's the word that comes to mind. They've got all the house, the cars, and all these sort of things. What role does spirituality have in them actualizing their full potential? That is such another dimension altogether, isn't it? What does that have to do for these people? Why that when you're actually helping people kick ass in the 3D?
Yeah, I think spirituality is really all of our secret weapon superpower. And even for those who aren't aware or those who haven't really tapped into it, or I have clients that say, I'm not into this, but I'm willing to be, when they even choose their coach, for instance, when they choose me from other coaches on a website, for instance, for one of the companies that I work for. So I think what I'm seeing with people is that what they like about spirituality and how it helps them in the business world. And as I like to say, that our spirit is that part of us that can't be rejected or overlooked or ridiculed or criticized. It is that purity and that strength about us. And so I think for me, I don't always use the language at first. I let the client kind of, when they start using that language, or I get really excited if people say God or universe, knowing that they do believe in a higher power. But I think there's a way to open people's hearts and get them in touch with their spirit without using that language, which you have to be careful about in the corporate world. But so for me, we're talking spirituality and doing spiritual work when we're asking the big questions and reflecting instead of just going mindlessly through the motions and the hustle and the grind. When clients are pulling back, when we're pulling back and pausing and being still for a moment and really listening to that inner voice, not the ego that tells us we're not good enough and we're not that enough or this enough, but the truth. We're doing this spiritual work, and we don't need to label it or call it out while we're doing it, but we're doing it. And I see the transformation and the shifts. And then people are kind of like, that was that felt good. More of that, please.
Yeah.
I hope that answered your question. Sorry. I went into spirit as I was answering. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. No, that was perfect. And so in there, one of the key questions I've got is, how do you bridge that gap? Because for some people, it's a very present conversation. It's spirit is spirituality, or their faith or their connection to God or the universe, as you described it, is so present for them. But for some people, it's just it's not even a thing. It's it's woo woo, or it's out there, or it's like taboo almost to even go there. How do you bridge that gap for some people? Or is it a matter of when the student is ready, the teacher appears and you don't need to bridge that gap? What's your thoughts on some of that stuff?
I think both are true. I think when we're talking about meaning and fulfillment and purpose, that's spirituality, right? Because that's bigger than us. Hopefully, your purpose is serving a cause or organization greater
Mm.
than yourself, because that will keep you going, having that strong why. When it's just about, as I like to say, if eating healthy and exercise is about looking hot in a bikini, screw it. I'm having pizza every night. I'm not going to work out. But for me, it's so much deeper. It's about wanting to be around for a long time because I'm
Mm.
here. I feel my big purpose, and I've taken on a lot from God and the angels, and I need a healthy vessel to deliver
Mm.
my messages and to treat people with kindness and have energy to do all the tasks that I have to do. So I think I'm thinking of what this man, Tony, keeps coming to mind, a man who very highly successful, has accumulated a great deal of wealth, had a heart attack in his 40s,
Mm.
almost died. And so then he's looking for more meaning and fulfillment. And this is the man who has a hard time taking 5 minutes a day to meditate, to do my practice called sit and stare, where you stare out the window or stare straight ahead and check in with yourself and reflect. Because there's this new thing where people are like, I need all this experience. And I say, the real learning, the real growth happens when we reflect upon our
Mm.
experiences. And that's spirituality to me. So I'm not one who likes to label so many things, but I think what's coming through to me in this conversation already is that it doesn't matter what you call it.
Mm.
I think we're being spiritual when we're being kind. I think we're exercising
Mm.
that muscle when we're setting healthy boundaries and when we're taking care of ourselves and we're doing things for others. So I appreciate you asking this because I think we can tap into this muscle a bit more.
Mm. And in many different ways is also what I'm hearing, and I love that. Tell us about the sit and stare, because this is like when you describe this. Sorry, I should just let you talk. But when you
No, I
describe
love
this for
this.
me, it was like this really like when I was like, oh, sit and stare. It was like almost like that moment, and maybe this is me being too like Zen Buddhist about it or whatever, but it was like, when you like you put the tea bag in the cup, you put the hot water in, and like all this stuff's happening, all the infusions happening. And I feel like that's my day sometimes. And then there's that moment where you pull the tea bag out and you just sort of look at the tea and you know it's hot and it's steaming, but you've got that moment where you're just like appreciating everything that's kind of happening and you're assessing, is it hot enough? And it just gives you that moment to calibrate. Is that what the sit and stare is? What is it in your world? Like, tell us about sit and stare, because I know it sounds super simple, and I get excited by that because it's like when people overcomplicate things, I'm like, what are you trying to sell me? It's like when it's
Yes.
simple, I'm like, oh, there's some wisdom here. So please share
Or
with
what
us
are
the sit
you
and stare.
unclear on? Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love your description. I just feel like when I'm talking to you, and I don't know if people can see me or not, if they're listening or they're watching, but I feel like I have my eyes closed and you are taking me to my transcendental place where I'm really going within. So thank you for that.
Mm.
Sit and stare came about for me, a week into lockdown, March
Mm.
2020, where, and again, I love that I'm in New York City, you're in Melbourne, Australia, and we had a similar experience. Everyone in the world has this in common where
Mm.
I was like, what in the hell is going on? And now what? Almost 2 years later, I'm still asking that question. But I noticed I was doing something in the beginning of the pandemic, and I was staring out the window a lot, or just staring straight ahead. And what I was doing was processing, because as you know, there was a lot to process. And
Mhm.
so I started getting really intentional and deliberate and conscious about this practice. And I named it my sit and stare time. And it turned
Mm.
into, 5 minutes here and there. And now, I mean, today I think on a total, I've done a good 2 hours of sit and stare time. And people might think, well, that's a waste or that's a lot. But clearly that says to me, there's a lot to process today.
Mhm.
Um, I'm a little tired. I'm trying. And also when I do my sit and stare time, I get more creative. I think to myself, ooh, you should reach out to so and so about a
Uh-huh.
collaboration. Ooh, send a note about this. I get an idea for my next book. All these things come to me. And so what the practice is, and what I invite everyone to do starting today, is you sit and stare like it says, and I want you to check in with yourself as if you're a small child and ask silently or out loud, because again, we are doing this by ourselves in a room, distraction free. We're
Mm.
turning all the devices off, no peeking at Instagram, no checking the score of the game, no, seeing what the cat or dog are
No
doing, or what your husband,
timer.
nothing. and
Mm.
and 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 asking yourself, how are you doing?
Mm.
What do you need right now? How can I support you? Who else could support you? What's working? What isn't? And then I want you to become practiced at listening to those answers. Again, not the ego that's like, why are you doing this? This is a waste of time. You don't have time to do this. You have this to do. You have that to do, and start beating yourself up. But listen to that inner wisdom that says, I am exhausted. Can you please stop packing your schedule solid? I'm not well. I need a day off. And it almost, I'm getting emotional as I say it, because it is like a small child, our inner child. It's like, I'm tired. Can you please stop? And I think today too, even the time, I'm like, why are you scrolling on Instagram? And like taking that time to sit and stare, or just even close my eyes for 10 minutes in between appointments or calls. And I just think that we don't treat ourselves as well as we should most of the time. I think we're all guilty of that. And we do it in the name of, but I have all these goals and I have things to do, and there's the bills need to be paid and the kids need this. So I invite everyone, if nothing else, if you get nothing else from this conversation, please, 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 I'm almost begging you. I think it's my spirit and my inner child. It's that, like, mommy, can we go outside and play? That's the other thing. We don't play. We don't have fun as much. So here's your invitation.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. The depth of that is profound. There's so much in there. It's even just like the mind thinking about it as a processor. Like it's always like tick, 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 and giving it that opportunity to sort of just defrag for a sec. Just go, yep, I'm gonna settle. And like we talk about, and there's examples that you gave of being able to, I get the inspired thought to connect with that person, or reach out to a friend from the past, or connect with this, and join some dots together. Like I find that we're rarely bored in today's information-rich society, but boredom is so fundamental for creativity, and without boredom, there's no creativity. So it's really profound watching how that comes together. And I want to go out on a bit of a limb here, Kate. Like I know, having interviewed so many people, that generally I find people come home to these profound bits of wisdom, having gone through, like, it's not happenstance that they just stumbled across, like, oh yeah, the full spirit workout, like, oh, that's great. But like usually it's informed by something really hard happened in their journey, and then they came together with something like, okay, this is what got me through. Was there a challenge that brought you to the full spirit workout, and can you tell us a little bit about that challenge?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. For me, it was two massive wake up calls of losing not one, but two dear friends to suicide in 1 year. One was a beloved ex-boyfriend. Another was a best friend. And it
Sorry.
totally changed. Thank you for that. The trajectory of my life. And I know a lot of people have been deeply impacted by suicide, by mental illness. What I have learned this past year, along with my sit and stare practice, is that we all struggle with mental health, all of us in some way.
It's
and
just a spectrum, right? Like that is such an important, sorry to butt in, such an important conversation.
I'm here for it.
Please continue. It's just,
no. I'm here for that. I thank you for your energy in that, because I'm just, this era of pretending to have it all together, to look cool or to impress someone. It's over. It is over. And that's what the full spirit is. It's the courage to be our whole person, not just the polished, put together person that we present to the world, but that messy person behind the scenes who's just trying to keep it all together. That person is lovable too. That person's good enough too. And so I think for me, being so impacted by tragedy, and coming from an athletic background, I was a competitive swimmer for 17 years, and knowing how hard I had to train my physical muscles to compete at a high level. In this moment of crisis, I thought, there must be a way to train my attitudinal muscles so I can get really fit and strong and resilient on the inside. And because quite frankly, even back then, this was 2015 now, so not too long ago, but the world was a happier place even then. I mean, there really is just so much uncertainty and chaos and sickness in the world. So it's really up to us to develop this inner musculature so that we do have the confidence to weather any storm, and that we are able to leverage our gifts and strengths and not succumb to all of the fear and stress and anxiety and all of this emotional gravity that weighs us down.
I love that. And one of the things you talk about is spiritual immunity. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Like, what is spiritual immunity?
Yeah, so we all have to take our vitamins, and our spiritual vitamins are things like gratitude visits, which is one of my favorite exercise that I talk about in the book. It's developed by Martin Seligman, who's the founder of positive psychology. And he talks about this in a TED talk. And he says, and I would love everyone to do this, you included. I'd love to hear your name when I ask, but you think of someone who has dramatically changed your life for the better, whom you've never properly thanked. And I want you to write that person a 300-word testimonial, an appreciation. And then you're going to call them up, say you want to come over. Don't tell them why. You may have to do it on video call. That's fine. And then I want you to read this person the letter. And what happens is you're going to cry. They're going to cry. You're going to have this unshakable bond for life. And your well-being is boosted. Their well-being is boosted. The well-being is boosted more than any Ferrari, new outfit, designer bag, vacation, more than any shiny object. This is proven research, and my life has certainly indicated it. And even before that, just taking these times every day. Everyone talks about gratitude, yes, but it's gratitude for the house and the clothes and these conversations, 100%. But expressing that to people. So you go get your coffee in the morning. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Hey, thanks. You always make my day when I come in and see every morning. Thank you. To whomever on the street, someone holds a door. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I really appreciate you. It takes 2 seconds. It's free. And it really does boost our immunity and our well-being. Something else simple, but I'm just going to remind everyone, sleep, exercise, time affluence, having and making the time to do what you actually want to do, social connection, even over Zoom, across the world from one another. I am so lit up right now because I'm connecting with someone socially, acts of kindness and service, things that most of us know. We kind of brush it off again in the name of, I got to make a buck. I got to do this. I got to do that. I love making bucks. I like money as much as the next person, but I'm just asking people, when you're feeling low, when you're feeling that lack of fulfillment, when your construction job is no longer doing it for you, tune into these practices as a way to boost that immunity. And I promise you they will work.
I love that. Can we talk a little bit, dive deeper? There's so much to drill down into there, but one of the key things I wanted to dive deeper is that connection piece. It's like we were talking about this before the show a little bit. It's like we've got people that we're supporting and they've got everything, but they're like, you said, like, just taking some time out. Like, I just want to have lunch with my high school friend. Like, I've got everything, but it's just like, I just can't find the time to have lunch with my high school. Like, how important is connection? And why is it so hard to facilitate in today's society, do you think?
I think because we say we don't have time. But then which I've done, I've set the timers on my phone. Oh, I don't have time to do X. I'm like, well, you were just on Instagram for 2 hours, and it's just, it's mind blowing, right?
Yeah. Checked.
I think there is this fear of, I haven't talked to someone in a while. It's going to be awkward to reach out, or something I've done is I'm going through a hard time. I don't want to feel like a burden to anyone. And, and some people sadly make us feel like a burden. I've been in that. I'm like the life of the party girl. So when I was going through a hard time, people are like, well, you play the role of making me happy and bringing me up. So also kind of letting some people in relationships like that fall away, where you're allowed to be your whole full self. That's the coach training I have too. It's the whole person coaching techniques. We coach all of you, and all of you is important, but connection is so important because, again, it boosts our well-being. Just instead of getting the dopamine from buying the thing. And we've all experienced this, right? I love to buy things. And certainly I bought a lot of things during the pandemic. And I had to check myself, like, what do you really need here? Because you get the thing and you get the next thing and you get the next thing and you're super happy for 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah, for a moment. Yeah.
It's like literally 15 minutes and then that like goes away. And so
the void comes back. Yeah.
The void comes back. I need the next thing, especially with our media. It's constantly bombarding us with images and messages that we aren't enough, unless you need to keep getting more and more stuff. And then we see that it doesn't actually move the needle in our well-being. But then you think of, even right now, I've known you for not even an hour. And I think that I feel more connected to you than some people I have known my whole life. And I am so lit up, and it's so important because, and you can feel it even in your body. You feel seen and you feel heard and you feel acknowledged. And I think that's an epidemic in our culture now that saddens me deeply,
Mm,
is even people who love us or claim to love us aren't able or willing to truly see us. They see, I think people sometimes experience this from family members where
mhm,
they've only gone a certain way. You've evolved past, a life that they've envisioned for themselves or even you, and they don't see you. It's kind of like, oh, good for you. Or what do you, I don't really get him, but it's painful. Right. And
mm,
so rather than being upset by that for a long period of time, I mean, it's certainly acknowledge it, but then I release it and then say, gosh, I never want anyone to feel that way in my presence, whether it's someone
mhm,
I've known 30 minutes or my whole life or the man at the
mm,
coffee shop. I really make it a point to truly see and hear people.
I love that. Is there a connection between seeing people and being able to see your inner child?
I think so, absolutely, because I think it's easier to see people when we've taken the time to see ourselves. Me, in seeing my own pain and my own struggles and limitations, I think, wow, this person who looks to have it all together too, I'm sure
Mm,
he has bad days. I'm sure
mm,
he um, is experiencing some lack of meaning or fulfillment in some area of his life, or maybe he's smiling and pretending to keep it all together because he has to present that way as the man of the
mm.
household, or
Yeah.
whatever it is. There's so much stress and pressure and expectation that we all carry around. So I
Mhm,
think when we do take the time to see ourselves and nurture that inner child, and sit and stare is a great time to do that,
mhm,
you have something to give others, right?
mm,
Because you have filled yourself up, and then you're able to offer that to others. And then it has this ripple effect where then the coffee guy goes home and is nicer to his family, or nicer to
totally.
the person on the subway, or nicer to the next customer. And then they're like, oh gosh, the coffee guy was so nice, and you see it and you see it and you see it, because we've seen it work the opposite way as well.
And relationships are such a good mirror. Hey, like I often find when I'm like interacting with people, because I'm by no means a saint. Like I have interactions where like I get like triggered and I'm like a bit like edgy and I'm like, oh, one of the things that's happening in Melbourne right now, and I'm not sure what it's like in New York, is people will drop in and they're like, you can't come in without your vaccination certificate. And some part of me is like, there's so many nicer ways to ask that, like just going, hey,
Ah,
like, do you have? And I get triggered, and it's like, and I've got like,
yeah.
it's fine. Like, go ahead, ask. Like, it's your thing, and I know it sucks. I even aware like it sucks to be you, to have to do that, like patrolling people. Like, I'm sure
Uh,
I'm not sure if you're an extrovert or an introvert, if you have the confidence to do this role, but there's some part of me still goes, get like, I go into like gruff state. It's like, oh, gruff, like, and it's
yeah.
like, oh man. And then eventually like allowing myself to sort of soften and just go, actually there's a human being in there, I'm not even sure he enjoys doing what he's doing, and he's doing it, like maybe I don't need to make his day worse, by going into my gruffness. And I've found like relationships to be this really interesting mirror. It's like, and that's just like a quick, it's not like a relationship sounds like, oh, you've known this person forever, but it's like, it's just another person that I'm sort of doing this dance of life with in a particular moment. For me to go, actually, there's an opportunity for me to soften and just see that this person's just doing what, he's here to do today, and he's just doing his role. And I don't need to make his life, like you described, any harder or any worse, and just sort of open and soften. And our relationships can reflect so much of our openness versus our closedness again and again, I find. Would you agree?
Yeah. And as you were talking, a few things came to me. May I
Mm.
share?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So one was because I've studied research about the curious brain versus anxious brain. And we spend a lot of time in our anxious brain. And our anxious brain is going off there like, what the hell? And I'm like, I'm stressed out, or I'm over the pandemic. And
Mm.
the curious brain, can get into and this is challenging, right? It's all not our default setting, can get into, why am I so triggered by that right now? I know he's just doing his job, or yeah, that would get annoying, or like I certainly was, had been grumpy on the job or tired, whatever. But when you're talking, I'm like, yeah, you're getting irritated or gruff because your values are being triggered. You're someone
Mm.
who values kindness and integrity. And when you're in someone's shop, it's kind of like, you work for me, I don't work for you right now, like
Mm.
and then also I think that because I've done the same thing, or for me, I get triggered by, you go to a restaurant, especially a really nice overpriced restaurant, which New York is full of them, and the hostess is rude, and it's just like, I'm about to have my $30 glass of wine. Like, you need to be polite. And
Yeah.
even if the glass of wine was $5, it's just like, you're at work. It is,
Kindness.
your job is literally to be friendly and greet people, not be a jerk. And so, but for
Mm,
me, I'm like, well, you're triggered. Your spirit of excellence and
mm,
kindness is being triggered. But in the work I do with confidence, one of my steps to the feeling more confident is
mm,
to let people off the hook. And that's spiritual fitness too, is to let people off the
mm,
hook, because then we need to let ourselves off the hook. And I'd like you to let me off the hook if I'm having a grumpy moment.
mm,
And also in that situation, this is especially important in restaurants, retail, is accept that people can't give you what they don't have. So for me, I'm like,
mm,
this hostess has clearly not been properly trained. It
mm.
could be for her fault, not. But if the manager, which in that case, the manager did approach me and apologize, and I said, hey, I don't know what the training's like here, but just thought you'd like to know I'm okay. Thank you for apologizing. But the next person might not be as kind or friendly
Willing
back. So
to
just,
let people off the hook. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
just, yeah. But I think too, not everybody has what we have to give. And so, but then also choosing, maybe I'm not going to go to that store again, or maybe
Mm.
I'm going to online shop, or maybe, I'm going to choose a different friend to have lunch with, or whatever. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Totally. Totally. You talked about the confidence. There are 5 P's to confidence that you are like sort of pillars for yourself. Can you share what they are? And maybe we can drill down into some of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first one is presence. And so
Mm.
obviously being fully present, not worrying about the past, not future tripping, but being
Mm.
all there. And
Mm.
with presence, it's also bringing your presence. So showing up like you mean it. So many
Mm.
people say to me, like, I haven't achieved this goal, or this isn't happening, or I haven't tracked this. And I think, I don't even believe that you want it. Like, you're not showing up fully for it. So I think just bringing in, you did presence to a T the first second of this show, where it's just like showing up like you mean it, got something to say, and fully present. And you brought me fully present, and like, let's go. Yeah, you don't have to be loud. You can be silent when you are showing up fully, but you
Mm.
get the idea. The next
Totally.
P is patience. One of my favorite stories to illustrate patience
Mhm.
is 20 years ago at the 2001 Grammys. Country singer Shelby Lynn won Best New Artist. And when she accepted her award, it's the only acceptance speech I've ever remembered in 20 some years of watching these shows. She said, Best New Artist, it's only taken me 13 years and 7 albums to get here. And I thought, how is she even eligible for
For a
Best New
new
Artist?
artist.
Album 7? But it just said so much to me, because I didn't know who she was, and I wasn't listening to
Mm.
country music at all at the time. And so I thought, oh, she just started playing guitar last year, now she's winning Grammys. But no, and she was a little snarky about it. And I appreciated that,
Yeah.
because people think, or they say like, oh, you're doing all these speaking events, you have all these clients, you have this own show, but they're not seeing like 5 years ago when
Yeah.
you're in a whole other different space. So I think trusting the process, having that patience, as I like to say, hold on loosely. When we grip so tight to our goals, we actually repel them. So put in the work, and
Yeah.
then, go have some fun with that inner child, take a rest, and just surrender a bit,
Can I just
right?
jump in there for a sec? Because one
Absolutely.
of the things that I love this, because one of the metaphors that I got given is like they're talking to the musician. They're like, oh my God, you're like you're like gifted. You're a genius. You're a musical genius. And he was like, no, I practiced. And they're like, no, 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 you're amazing. Like, you're a genius. Like, you're so gifted. You're gifted. And he's like, no, but I practiced. And it's like, everyone's like, no, you're gifted. And he's like, man, like, do you know how many hours I practiced?
Oh my
And it's like,
gosh.
people shower you with that accolade of like, you're really good and you're like gifted at this. And it's like, man, like I appreciate that you're loving it, but at the same time, like you talked about like the snarky, like like being a little bit patient, like that patience piece is so. It's like yes, like but I diligently worked on this. It's like let's not discount all
Wow.
that energy and effort that goes into it. So I really respect and love that one. And it's yeah, patience is like a full medicine for our time. Like I feel with
Oh,
access to information at our fingertips, it's like da 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 da. Like I often trip out about like there was a time in my forefathers where if someone wanted to know that why the grass was green, they would just have to wait for someone wiser than them to sort of come through the town. Yeah, like literally hold a thought and never and just be okay with it having not having it answered and potentially going, God made it this way, until someone
Wow.
comes along and goes, well, have you heard of chlorophyll? And it's like, what is this chlorophyll thing? And then someone could potentially explain it to them because they were a traveler and coming through their town if they got the opportunity to have that. And for us, it's like, why is the sky blue? But oh, it's reflection. Oh, it might not even be blue. Oh, it might just be the end of where human. And it's like, oh my god! And but like you just get it instantaneously. It's like there's no need for patience. So yeah, I love the patience piece. Thank you so much for sharing that. Sorry, I sort
And no, I love this. It's a conversation. I love it. And you brought up, it's usually that I say it fifth, but I'll say it next. Practice. That's the P. And
of.
I appreciate you saying that, because even as a coach, I'm sure you hear too, where people are like, oh, I'm good, or I don't need coaching. And I always think of Tom Brady, the American football player. I don't know if everyone knows, but he and I were both Big Ten athletes here in the States at the same time, and he's still winning Super Bowls, and
Uh-huh.
my knees hurt when I go to Pilates. So I bow down to you, Tom Brady, but that's a testament to this man practices harder than anyone, not because he's the worst, but because he's the best. He's got more coaches than anyone because he's the best. His talent merits investment. So putting in the reps, as I like to say too, it's not enough to just show up at the gym in your cute outfit. You got to do the push-ups and sit-ups, and your personal trainer sadly can't do them for you. That would be nice, but then the results would be theirs and not ours, so that we get the fitness, we get to feel better in our bodies and live long lives. So put in your practice. I'm going back now. Another P is purpose. This is your
Oh.
why. So when people say, I want to write a book, I say, great, why? And if your why is because they'll get more likes on Instagram, you're not, I would bet almost everything, you're never going to write that book. If you do, it's going to be shit. And probably not do well, because your why is very weak. And writing a book is so much work in isolation for the most part, and you've got to have a really strong why. For me, it was dedicated to Sam and Ruff, my loves who are no longer with us, and to anyone who struggles with mental health. And that truly kept me going when it was so hard. Books are not big money makers unless you're a massive celebrity. It is so much work. It's like being a parent, to the extent of you're like, I'm doing all this work, like no one's appreciating it. Like nobody there. You're like by yourself. No one sees that like middle of the night meltdown and all the in the no sleep. So having a really strong why, having that cause greater than ourselves will keep us going.
I'm obsessed with that. Like my whole thing with purpose coaching, as those tuning into the Inspired Evolution know. And what you're sharing is literally, you've just put it in a capsule in such a profound way. Like it really is that, isn't it? Like it gives you the resilience to keep going. It gives you the motivation, the inspiration to keep going. And it is that, right? Like when the lights are off and, no one can see you, it's like it gets gritty, it gets hard, and it calls upon like this deeper part of yourself to like, why are you really doing this? And if the why isn't strong enough, it's just so easy to flake. It's just so easy to come apart. It's so easy that you lose your tether. And it's really interesting because sometimes it makes no sense, but I find people will be like so consumed with what they're working on, and it may not fulfill their deepest why, and they're super busy and they're burning out almost. And with purpose coaching, it's like, yeah, but what are your passions? And you give them the task of like, hey, just explore this thing that you love that you've always neglected. And taking on something extra when you were already time poor and burning out, but this thing actually fuels you, makes you feel okay about all of this all of a sudden. And like when you look at the equation of like, oh, I'm time poor, but like I'm spending my time doing more things rather than less, but this is energizing me because it's connected to my why and I feel fueled by my why. It's like, it makes no sense logically. It literally makes no sense. But I hear what you're saying in terms of, it gives you that confidence. It energizes you, like having that purpose piece. I totally resonate with that. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure, as you know too, you feel less alone, and you feel like you have a partner, whether it is God, whether it is the angels. And I love that I've got my
The
angel wings
wings,
behind
so
me. And I
inspiring.
got even started to feel like a little emotional when you were talking, because I laughed. There were so many moments where I'm like, I'm never writing a book again. Like this is never again. I won't get into the gory details. That's a whole other conversation. And it's funny because I keep getting the nudges, and then people even just say to me, I mean,
Mm.
it's literally like, I think it's how people that have kids, it's like you have your first kid is this big ordeal. And then it's like, when are you having the next kid? How many kids are you having? And it's like, especially the woman is like, whoa, like slow your roll. Like, wait a minute. I just went through a lot here, you know? Um, but
Yeah,
I
way
do,
easier said than done.
yeah,
Yeah.
correct. But I do keep getting again the intuitive hits and the nudges, like time to write the next one. And so if it were just about me, hell no. But because it's a greater purpose, and
Mm.
I have taken on, I've heard the call and I'm answering. It's like, yeah, I will do that, and I'm going to put in the work, not because I'm going to make all this money or do all this. It's just, it's my calling. I'm showing up, and as I say, I'm doing God's work. When I'm doing
Mhm.
keynote speeches, which, as you know, so much work, and I'm standing up there saying all these dark, painful secrets from my life, stuff that even friends don't even know. And it's just like, why would you put yourself through this? But
Mhm.
when I'm up on stage and doing this, I feel like I'm doing God's work, and
Mhm.
answering the call, and doing something bigger than myself, so that really people can look at themselves, and
Mhm.
people can start living deeper, richer, more meaningful lives, and not be just so like caught up in here, but being more intentional. So without going on and on, that's our purpose P. And
Purpose
then
is huge. Yeah,
the
thank you.
final is preparation, and really it is like the musician
Mm.
again too. Or I think of Amanda Gorman, the young poet who was at our inauguration here in the States. And she stole the show from the president, from the vice president, from J-Lo, from Lady Gaga. And it's because she embodied every word she said. You could say she had prepared her whole life for this moment, and she was a complete unknown to just about
Mhm.
everybody except for Dr. Biden, who I think invited her. But I like to think of that because it is like Prince playing the electric guitar. It's like you said, it's just so much preparation, so that when you get to the Grammys, when you get to the freaking inauguration, there was like no nerves. She just showed up and let it rip. Not because
Mhm.
she's done it at places like that for so long, but it was just, she embodied the words so much. And I think
Mhm.
I think it's so important that we actually believe the things that we are saying. And again, we
Mhm.
talked about Instagram. It's just, I feel like the same 10 quotes. And I want to shake you and be like, why don't you quote yourself? Or what do you think on something? I'd like to hear your original words, not
Mhm.
Rumi and
Mhm.
not Brene Brown, and not like, what do you think?
Mhm.
And I think we know what we think when we spend that time. But also, I hear people regurgitating these quotes, but then they're living their life the complete polar opposite. So it's just like,
Mhm.
I don't believe you
Mhm.
when you say that. And I think
Mhm.
that's why the rub with politicians is people are like, they say what they say, and then people are like, I don't believe you. You literally
Mhm.
did X, Y, and Z. And so I'm not going to go into the whole political firestorm, but um, that's the importance of being prepared.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So we've got presence, patience, purpose, preparation, and practice. Five P's.
Yes.
And
And two bonus P's, if I may.
yeah.
Uh, um, one is pause, and we've talked a little bit about the pause, but
Mm.
pausing, taking that beat before you respond to the upsetting email or text message,
Mm.
before you tell the jerk that they're really being a jerk. Take a
Yeah,
pause, because that might
great.
damage the relationship
That's
forever.
a
I don't
good
know,
bonus. I like this bonus.
maybe
This
from
is a
personal
good bonus.
experience. It's a good bonus.
Yeah.
And the other bonus, my speaking coach Eduardo says this to me all the time, because I struggled with perfectionism and
Oh.
obsessed with performance, which I think is something a lot of people can relate to. And he would always just say to me, just be a freaking person. So the second bonus P
Mm.
is person, as in just be a freaking person. Don't be obsessed. I have to do this, I have to do that. It's just be a freaking person. And you can tell too when someone's just like, even today, because I'm like, I'm tired, and I feel myself like going off on tangents because I get so passionate about this. But I'm like,
Mm.
you're just being a freaking
Just being a
person, and
person.
you're present, and you've got your purpose, and please be patient with yourself. Take a pause and
Yeah.
just breathe.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Trust in your preparation. You've done this a few times before. Keep going. I love it. I love it. That is gorgeous. Thank you so much for the bonuses. That is, yeah, and there is so much space. Even just as you said that, just how like loose I
Oh,
started to feel. Just be a person. It's like, oh yeah. I've found in my coaching, like, yeah, it's, it's more common than you'd imagine, this perfectionism thing. Um, and when people now say to me, it's like, oh, I'm just perfecting, or I'm waiting for it to be perfect. And I know that that's in like, it's never going to be perfect. But and now people say perfectionism, and people in the podcast would have heard this a few times now if you've been following along. It's like, all I hear is like, bourgeois resistance. It's just like I'm just like perfectionism, and I'm like bourgeois resistance. It's like it's still just resistance, bro. Like just be a person, like you described. Meet yourself where you're at, and let's tie up our shoelaces and let's get going. Just see where the trail
I
takes
love
you.
that. I
It's
love that.
yeah, it gets me every time.
I
Oh
think too
man,
with being
yeah.
a person, because when I felt from you and you felt lighter because you're like, oh, I can do that. If I said to you, I'm going to give you a phrase and I need you to recite it in a British accent perfectly and don't sound Australian at all. And can you do it while doing jumping jacks and jumping up and down and juggling your books behind you? You're going to be like, well, what a dumb request. She sucks. And no, I can't. Like, I can't do that perfectly. But I'm like, can you just be a person? Yeah. And I think even I write about in my book going to dance class, and I'm a horrible dancer. And the first thing my instructor, Jess, said to me was, let's start with failure. And I'm like, that I can do. I can't dance, whatever you're doing, but fail, I can do that in dance class,
Oh, yeah,
And it just
yeah.
took all the pressure off and I was able to have fun. And then in that moment, I became a dancer. So I invite
Mm.
everyone to start with failure, just be a freaking person and really exercise those 7 technical P's.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing them with us. So, before I let you go, it'd be totally rude to have to like get you on and then not go, what is a full spirit workout? Like, Amrit, what have you been talking about this whole time? Pardon me, guys. So, what is a full spirit workout, Kate?
Yeah, I really think it's everything that we've been talking about and
Mm.
everything that we've discussed
The
is in the book,
culmination.
The Full Spirit Workout. But it's like I said, the full spirit is that whole person, the polished, put together person,
Mm.
and the messy person, and having courage to be all of it, really, and
Mm.
just put ourselves out there. And the full spirit is that presence and showing up like you mean it, and really flexing that muscle proudly and to the world, and really owning who we are, all the beautiful flaws and all. But it is those building of the attitudinal muscles, the mental, emotional, physical, so that, as I like to say, when you see the anger train coming, you don't get on board. You're like, ooh, I know. And I know that's the anger train, and I'm going to wait because the joy train's coming down the tracks next. So it
Mm.
really is, that those moments of stillness and the moments of conscious, deliberate, intentional pauses.
Mm.
It isn't that hustle and grind and forcing to make anything happen. It is
Mm.
exhausting. It really is stepping off the hamster wheel and into a place of self-discovery, and starting where you are, and being okay with that, and having fun. I think we've all forgotten to have fun.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that because oftentimes like we see the need, but we recognize the benefits, I guess, of going to the gym, working out the body, staying in fit, staying limber. Sometimes it's stretching, sometimes it's weight, sometimes it's yoga, all the different types of things that we can do for our body and just, taking care of it. But we can't see our spirit sometimes. Well, some would argue it's hard to miss. Take a look around, different perspectives. But do you know what I mean? Like if you can't see it, and then it's like, oftentimes it's like, what do I do for the exercise? And you've given us so much to take away today, like so much. And I'm so grateful for that. One of my questions that I love to ask is, what does an inspired evolution look like to you collectively, individually? If we're all inspired, we're all evolving, what does the hope for tomorrow look like for us? What is possible in your world? Like you're doing so much for the world, empowering people, changing people's lives, connecting them back to spirit, helping them achieve things that, beyond their wildest imaginations. What is in your imagination? Why are you doing this? And what does the inspired evolution look like for you?
I love that question. What came to mind immediately was spiritual fitness. Mental, emotional fitness is as mainstream as going to the gym, and people want to do it as much or even more, because there's plenty of people who hate physical exercise. So hopefully they'll love the inner fitness, and
Mm.
where people are just exercising these muscles, so they're living lives that light them up, and they're treating themselves and others better. They're more confident. They're performing at a higher level. They're more productive. They're more creative. They're more compassionate. I mean, hello, I think our world could certainly use that right now. Just more of the loving kindness and feeling that true connection to themselves so that they can connect with other people and they can connect with Mother Earth and treat her a lot better too. I don't think we'd be in the mess that we're in right now. And just paying more attention to that, which truly matters, rather than the absolute, I just want to start cursing, but I won't, but BS nonsense that we are giving so much of our time, energy, money, power to all the time, sometimes without even thinking about it, and like shutting that stuff down and tuning back in to what really matters, and almost like going back in time where we are more simple and just sitting down. I mean, what a concept to just sit and talk to a person instead of sending a text. I mean, I'm going off now because it's like such simple stuff. And I worry about our humanity sometimes because I feel like so many people have fallen asleep, and we're nearing midnight here, where I think we're past even crisis mode, but it's time to wake up. There are so many tools available. It's just about asking yourself, who do I want to be? And what do I really want? And really taking the steps to get there, rather than, I feel like we were born and we're handed scripts. Men, you're handed the script, like, don't cry, don't show emotion, all that bullshit. And then women, it's like, look pretty and get married and have kids and be happy with that. And it's just, I just want to remind everybody, you can throw away the script, you can burn it. You don't have to have anything to do with this script, and really make life your own, and know that you are powerful and you have the tools to do it.
And write your own script. Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah. I'm sorry. I feel like a guitar that's just been strummed. It's just perfect. Oh man, I could just thank you for being here, your radiant presence. Thank you so much for sharing yourself so abundantly with us. But I know it's a lifetime's work that goes into this. So thank you so much for showing up, doing the work consistently so that we can have this incredibly rich conversation today. On behalf of myself, the Inspired Evolution Tribe, the audience, I want to continue to wish you the best for everything that's coming up. It has been such a gift for us to share in your wisdom, your insights, and we'll put a link to the book in the show notes. So yeah, if you guys are curious and you guys have got something out of this, please check out the book. It's in the links in the show notes. And I'm sure we'll do this again, Kate. Thank you so much for your blessings.
I would love that. You're inspiring me to come to Australia finally in the near future. And just think, you're electric. And we've been talking so much about music. I'm like, you are the electric guitar and you are fine tuning your instrument. And I'm loving what I hear. So thank you. And thank you to your beautiful audience. This has been so much fun.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, leave us a comment. And if you want to stay in tune for new episodes launching every Monday, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay inspired to evolve.